What happens when a forbidden love blooms in the darkest place imaginable and someone finds out? Inside a high-security prison in Wyoming, a correctional officer and an inmate formed a connection that should never have existed. It started with stolen glances, then quiet favors, then long nights. With the cameras unplugged, their secret romance remained hidden from everyone until one night. It wasn't. Someone saw them. And just weeks later, someone ended up dead. Was it revenge? Was it blackmail, gone too far, or was it love, twisted into something violent? The prison walls were supposed to keep people in, but they couldn't keep this secret from coming out. And when the truth finally surfaced, it shook the system to its core, exposing not just a relationship, but everything that had been festering beneath the surface. This is the story of the scandal they tried to bury, of a murder they couldn't cover up, and of two men caught in a storm of desire, shame, and betrayal. You won't believe how it ends. Cold Hollow Correctional Facility sat in the middle of nowhere, a gray slab of concrete surrounded by tall wire fences and frozen Wyoming wind. For most people, it was a place of punishment. For some, it was hell. But for Caleb Monroe, it was simply work, quiet, routine, predictable. Caleb was 34 years old, ex-military, clean-cut, and meticulous. He wasn't the kind of man who talked too much or smiled often. He showed up on time, followed the rules, and went home alone. That was the rhythm of his life, and he liked it that way. Until Eli Turner. Eli had been locked up for 3 years, serving a 10-year sentence for manslaughter after a bar fight turned fatal. He was 29 with soft brown eyes and a quiet intensity that made him stand out. He didn't cause trouble. He didn't belong here, at least not in Caleb's eyes. They didn't speak at first, just passing nods, the occasional glance. But something shifted one night during Caleb's shift in Block D. It was cold, colder than usual. The heating in that section had failed again, and inmates were shivering in their bunks. Caleb walked past the cells, checking each one, making mental notes. Then he saw Eli sitting up, his blanket wrapped around his shoulders, lips slightly trembling. Caleb paused. "You good?" he asked, voice low. Eli looked up and nodded. "Yeah, just cold." That should have been it, just another night, just another inmate. But something about the way Eli said it, not with a complaint, not demanding anything, just quiet resignation struck a chord Caleb didn't expect. He returned an hour later with an extra blanket. No words, just a gesture. He slid it through the bars and kept walking. From that night on, they noticed each other more. Caleb started assigning Eli small cleanup duties in the admin wing, a quiet privilege only offered to inmates who could be trusted. It wasn't much sweeping halls, wiping windows, organizing storage, but it gave the moment small windows of quiet where no one else was watching. At first, the conversations were harmless. Eli would ask about the weather or what life was like outside the fences. Caleb kept things short, but over time, words turned into jokes. Jokes into stories, and stories into something deeper. There was a moment, a fleeting one, when their hands brushed. A spark. Neither of them acknowledged it, but neither forgot it. Caleb knew the line, and he knew he was already crossing it. It wasn't just that Eli was an inmate. It was what it meant, what people would say, what the job would do to him, what society would do to him if they knew. But despite the fear, something kept pulling him closer. And Eli didn't push. He didn't flirt. He didn't manipulate. He just listened, looked at Caleb like he was a person, not a uniform. That look, it was enough. Weeks passed. Then came the first night Caleb pulled the plug on the camera. It was 2:18 a.m. The prison was silent. Most inmates were asleep. Caleb walked the corridor like normal, but when he reached the surveillance panel, he paused, looked around, then reached behind the junction box and slipped out the feed to cell D14. Eli's cell. He walked in 5 minutes later. They didn't touch, not at first. They just sat, talked, whispered like teenagers hiding under bedsheets. Time passed fast too fast, and when Caleb left, his pulse was racing. The second time, there was a kiss. From there, it became routine. Every few nights, Caleb would kill the camera, slip into the cell, and for a few hours they weren't guard and inmate, just two people in a place that made no room for softness. They were careful, so careful. Caleb kept the interaction short. He never brought phones, never left the camera unplugged for long. He made sure no one else was on shift when he made his rounds. But Cold Hollow was a machine, and no machine runs perfectly forever. On Thursday, February 9th, something changed. Mason Doyle, a fellow officer, had worked the day shift. He was rough around the edges, known for skimming paperwork and skipping corners. That afternoon, he'd left early claiming stomach trouble and left behind a manila folder with paperwork that needed filing before morning. At 10:27 p.m., long after the admin wing had shut down, Mason's truck pulled back into the facility's side lot. He didn't check in, didn't clock back in. He just used his master key, slipped through the west entrance, and made his way toward the office wing to grab what he forgot. But halfway down the hall, he heard something. Voices, quiet, familiar. He paused, moved silently toward the admin break room. The door was ajar. He saw a shadow, no two, one seated, one standing. As he stepped closer, the hallway lights caught something they shouldn't have. Officer Caleb Monroe standing close, too close to inmate Eli Turner, his hand resting on the younger man's knee. Mason froze. Caleb turned slightly, just enough for Mason to see his face and the unmistakable look in his eyes. And then Mason looked up. The security camera above the door was unplugged. He didn't say a word. He backed away slowly, and phone in hand, the camera app already recording. 10 seconds. That was all he needed. He didn't need audio, didn't need proof of anything else. Just 10 seconds of Caleb and Eli in the wrong place, at the wrong time, with the camera mysteriously disabled. He ended the video, slipped away, grabbed his folder, and left. But before he walked out the door, Mason doubled back. He returned to the hallway panel, plugged the camera back in, and then he did something no one expected. He deleted the footage from the system, copied the backup file to his personal USB, and left everything else exactly as it was. To Caleb, it would seem like just another night. But someone had seen, and someone now had the power to destroy everything. Mason Doyle couldn't sleep that night. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the glow of his phone lighting up his face every few seconds. He watched the video over and over, not because he needed to, but because he couldn't believe it was real. Caleb Monroe, Mr. Perfect, rule follower, the guy who made everyone else look lazy just by doing his job. That same guy, now on his knees in front of a damn inmate. Unbelievable. But real. And now, Mason had power. He'd never had that before, not like this. Not something that could ruin someone. Not something so dirty, so personal, so perfect. He wasn't going to waste it. The next day, Mason showed up to work like nothing happened. Fresh uniform, coffee in hand, nodding at Caleb from across the security office. Caleb nodded back, unaware, calm as ever. That was the beauty of it, Mason thought. Caleb had no idea he'd been seen. But Mason didn't plan to strike immediately. No, he was going to enjoy this. Take his time, make Caleb sweat. And so, for a few days he said nothing. He watched. He waited. And then he made his move. It started with a note, left in Caleb's locker. "Camera's back on. I saw you. You know what I saw." No name, no signature, just that. Caleb froze when he read it. His hands went cold. His breath caught in his throat. He looked around the locker room like someone might be watching, but it was empty, silent. He crumpled the paper and shoved it deep into his pocket. Who could have seen? He retraced every step of that night. The unplugging, the walk down the hall, the time spent with Eli. He thought he'd been careful. He'd even double-checked the camera light to make sure it was off. Then it hit him. The panel. He never checked it again after leaving. Someone must have come in later. A guard, maybe a janitor, maybe. His stomach twisted. Mason. The next time he saw Mason, the older guard was leaning against the vending machine in the break room, sipping a Mountain Dew like it was any other Tuesday. "Hey, Caleb," he said casually, "how's the graveyard shift treating you?" Caleb swallowed hard, same as always. Mason smirked. "Yeah, routine can be a killer, huh?" That smirk, the glint in his eyes, confirmed it. Mason knew. Caleb said nothing more, just walked out. He didn't sleep that night, couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that smirk, heard those words, wondered if Mason had told anyone, wondered how much longer he had before everything came crashing down. But it didn't. At least, not yet. Instead, Mason waited another day. Then sent the next message this time, a text. "Unknown number, still sleeping with inmates, Officer Monroe, or should I share the tape with Warden Pike?" Caleb stared at the screen for a full minute before replying. "What do you want?" The reply came instantly. Simple, cash, 500 by Friday. Leave it in locker 42 at the gym. No questions, no games. Caleb felt sick. 500 wasn't much, not really. But it wasn't about the money. It was the implication, the proof that Mason really did have something, that he really was willing to use it. And worse, that this was only the beginning. Friday came. Caleb left the money in locker 42. It was gone within the hour. No one said anything. No cameras caught anything. And Caleb's secret stayed safe. For now. But silence didn't last. Next week, another text. 1,000, same place, you're welcome. This time, it hurt. Caleb had to drain his savings, sell a few things, lie to his bank. But he paid. And again, Mason said nothing. But the smirk that never left his face. Every time they crossed paths at work, Caleb saw it. The smug little twitch of Mason's lip, the confidence, the control. It was unbearable. Worse, it started affecting how Caleb did his job. He was distracted, forgetful. He snapped at inmates, made mistakes on logs. One night, he nearly locked himself inside a utility room while trying to fix a jammed door. Eli noticed. "You okay?" he asked quietly one evening as he mopped the floor of the admin hallway. Caleb nodded too quickly. "Fine, just tired." But Eli knew better. "You've been off all week." Caleb looked around. No one nearby. Just them. "You ever make a mistake?" he whispered, "and then live in fear of someone finding out?" Eli's eyes softened. "Yeah, every day since I got here." Caleb gave a bitter smile. "Yeah, thought so." Eli didn't press. He just nodded and returned to his work, but his eyes lingered on Caleb a little longer that night. And that scared Caleb even more. because now someone else knew something was wrong. He couldn't afford that. Not now. The third message didn't ask for money. It asked for a favor. You're on medical escort Thursday night. Swap shifts with Terry. I need to move some things around. Don't ask, just do it. Caleb stared at the screen, jaw clenched. Now Mason wanted favors. Shady shift changes. What was he trying to move? Drugs contraband. This wasn't just blackmail anymore. This was manipulation, control, abuse. And Caleb hated it. But he did it. Because what choice did he have? He swapped shifts. Signed the paperwork. Said nothing. And that Thursday night, Mason took the route Caleb was supposed to take, and no one questioned it. That was the worst part. No one noticed. No one cared. And Mason knew it. He was getting bolder, sloppier, and still untouchable. That weekend, Caleb made a decision. He had to know exactly what Mason had. He had to see the video. He had to confirm whether it really showed everything or if Mason was bluffing. And so, he waited for the right moment. Monday night, 11:45 p.m. Mason's shift ended early. He left his phone charging in the locker room, like he always did when heading to his truck for a smoke break. Caleb waited exactly 2 minutes, then slipped in. The phone wasn't locked. Mason was careless that way, or maybe just arrogant. Caleb didn't waste time. Opened the photo app, searched the albums. Found it. February 9th, 10:32 p.m. A 10-second video. No audio, but crystal clear. Caleb, Eli, close, too close. No touching, not in this clip, but the implication was loud and clear. Caleb watched it twice, then did something impulsive. He emailed it to himself. Just the clip, nothing else. Then deleted the sent mail. Erased his fingerprints from the phone. Put it back exactly where it was. And left. Back in his car that night, Caleb sat for almost an hour. The clip sat in his inbox, unopened, waiting. He didn't delete it. He didn't use it. He just needed to have it. Proof. Leverage. Insurance. But most of all, a reminder that he wasn't completely helpless. That Mason wasn't the only one who could hold a secret over someone else's head. He wasn't proud of it. He wasn't even sure why he did it. But somehow, having that clip made him feel less alone. At least for now. But deep down, Caleb knew something was changing. The blackmail wouldn't stop. The pressure wouldn't ease. And sooner or later, something would snap. By the time the fourth message came in, Caleb didn't even react. His phone buzzed, screen lighting up with that same blocked number. He already knew who it was. We're not done. You'll get a package Wednesday. It goes into the kitchen storage. No questions. No delays. He read the message 3 times before locking his phone. Drugs. It had to be. Mason was using him now, not just for money or power, but to smuggle contraband into a maximum security prison. And if Caleb got caught, it wouldn't be a suspension. It would be time. Real time. Prison for a correctional officer. He could already imagine the headlines. He didn't reply. Didn't argue. Didn't even try to ask what was inside. because he knew Mason would just send him another video clip or worse, send it to someone else. Wednesday came. A small brown package, no return address, wrapped in plastic, was tucked inside a locker near the back entrance. Caleb picked it up during his lunch break. His hands trembled the entire time. He walked it down the hall like it was a live grenade. No one saw him. No one stopped him. He left it inside the dry goods closet in the kitchen wing, just like Mason asked. Done. But it didn't feel over. It never felt over. That night, Caleb sat in his car long after his shift ended. He didn't turn the key. He didn't play music. He just sat in the dark, the dashboard lights blinking dimly, his fists clenched against the steering wheel. How did this happen? One moment of weakness, one connection, one night. And now his entire life was being dictated by someone like Mason Doyle, a man who barely did his job, who cut corners, who never cared about rules, until it gave him leverage. Caleb thought about quitting. But if he left now, Mason would still have the video. He'd lose everything: his reputation, his benefits, his pension, and for what? Love. No, it was more complicated than that. This wasn't just about desire. This was about feeling seen, understood, like he wasn't alone in the world. Eli gave him that, without asking for anything in return. And now, that small piece of peace was being held hostage. Eli noticed the change. Caleb had stopped talking to him, stopped looking at him the same way, stopped coming around during the late shifts. The routine they had, the rhythm, was broken. Eli didn't ask at first. But when he saw the bags under Caleb's eyes, the way his hands trembled during roll call, the way his voice caught whenever he passed by, Eli knew something was wrong. And he wasn't going to ignore it. One night, during cleaning duty, he cornered Caleb in the storage room. "Tell me what's going on." Caleb jumped. "You shouldn't be back here." "Screw that. What's wrong?" "I said drop it." Eli didn't flinch. "You think I haven't seen this before? I've seen guys go dark. Caleb, seen them spiral. You're halfway there." Caleb turned away, pressing his palms to the metal shelf. A long silence. Then, barely audible, "Someone saw us." Eli's breath caught. "What?" "Someone saw us that night in the office. They filmed it." Eli stepped closer. "Who?" "I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's Mason. But he's been using it, blackmailing me. First for money, now other things." Eli's voice dropped. "What kind of things?" Caleb hesitated. "Then I delivered something. Package. Probably drugs. I don't know. I didn't look." Eli cursed under his breath. "You have to tell someone." "I can't." "Why not?" Caleb turned to face him, eyes red. "Because I'm not like you, Eli. I don't survive here if this gets out. You do your time, and maybe one day you get out. Me, I lose everything. My job, my name, my whole goddamn life." Eli stared at him, then said softly, "Then fight back." But fighting back wasn't easy. The next message came 2 days later. "Another drop coming. This one goes into maintenance. Don't screw it up." Caleb didn't answer. He started typing twice, then deleted the words. What was there to say? He could try to confront Mason, threaten him, but with what? The copy of the video in his inbox, Mason had the original, and probably backups. Could he go to the warden? What would he even say? "I'm being blackmailed because I broke the law"? No, that wouldn't save him. It would just speed up the fall. And then the final straw. Mason approached him in person. It was after shift change, in the locker room. Caleb was alone, unlacing his boots, when Mason walked in, calm as ever, tossing a protein bar between his hands. "Got the next job for you," he said casually. Caleb didn't look up. Mason smirked. "Kitchen's asking for new filters, air vents. You're gonna say you found a rat in the duct, file a maintenance report, and get me into that crawl space. Easy." Caleb stood. "What the hell is in that vent, Mason?" "Don't ask. Just do it." "I'm done." Mason's smile faded. "No, you're not. I'm not helping you run a drug ring." "You're already in it, Monroe." "No, I did what I had to, but this..." Mason took a step forward, lowering his voice. "You think I won't burn your whole life down? I've got more than just that video. You think people won't believe I was your accomplice, that you brought Turner into your office for more than just kisses?" Caleb froze. "You think I don't know what kind of stuff goes down in there? You think I haven't seen worse?" He leaned closer. "You are mine now. You don't get to say no anymore." Caleb didn't respond. Didn't blink. Just stared straight ahead. And Mason walked away victorious. That night, Caleb drove to the bridge just outside of town. He stood at the edge for almost 20 minutes, watching the water below, thinking, wondering what would happen if he just let go. Would it be easier? Would it end all of it? No more pressure, no more fear, no more Mason, no more pretending. But then he thought of Eli. Of the way Eli looked at him, not like a mistake, not like a sinner, just human. And he stepped back. Back home, he opened his inbox again. The video was still there. He watched it one more time. Then did something he hadn't done before. He clicked download. He didn't know why. Maybe as a reminder. Maybe as leverage. Maybe for revenge. But something inside him was shifting. He was done being scared. Something was going to break. And soon. It started with a surprise inspection. Friday, 6:40 a.m. Caleb was just finishing his shift when the warden's assistant approached him in the hallway, clipboard in hand, eyes cold. "Random locker checks," she said flatly. "Union's been complaining about contraband. We're running it across all shifts." Caleb's blood ran cold. He followed her back to the locker room, trying not to shake. Inside his locker, his lunch bag, a pair of gloves, a spare flashlight, and the USB drive. It was tucked into a small zippered pouch sewn into the bottom of the bag. The drive that contained the only copy of Mason's video, the one Caleb had downloaded 3 nights ago and promised himself he'd never use. She started with another officer's locker, then another. Caleb waited, silent, stiff. But then her radio crackled. A fight had broken out in Block B. She cursed under her breath, checked her watch, and gave Caleb a short look. "You're lucky. We'll finish this later." And just like that, she was gone. Caleb waited until the hallway was empty, then opened his locker, pulled out the USB, and stared at it. He wanted to throw it away. He wanted to smash it. He wanted to forget all of this had ever happened. But he didn't. Instead, he tucked it into his sock and limped out like nothing had happened. By the time he got home, the sun was up, and his hands were still shaking. He sat on his couch, staring at the wall, every muscle in his body clenched. It was only a matter of time. He knew it now. He was slipping, and people were starting to notice. His shift records had errors. His behavior logs were inconsistent. He'd missed a mandatory security debrief last week and hadn't responded to an internal email from the warden's office. That wasn't like him, and they knew it. He was being watched. And Mason was still pressing. That afternoon, another message, clock's ticking. I want that duct cleared by next Thursday, or I release everything. No greetings, no threats, just certainty. Mason had stopped asking. Now he was commanding. Caleb didn't reply. He didn't even read the message a second time. Instead, he drank. For the first time in years. Whiskey. Neat. No ice. No food. Just heat down his throat and numbness in his head. And when he was drunk enough, he opened the laptop, pulled up the video, watched it frame by frame. He saw himself, the man he used to be, the man who thought he could keep control. And he saw Eli, kind, trusting, vulnerable. He closed the laptop and started crying. The next morning, he didn't go to work. He called in sick, but he didn't sleep. He drove, nowhere in particular, just loops around town, highway, back roads, anything to feel like he was in motion, anything to avoid stillness. Stillness meant thinking. Stillness meant remembering. And then, an idea came. Not a good one, not a safe one, but a final one. Saturday night, 8:30 p.m. Mason got off work early. Again, Caleb knew his route, knew where he parked, knew that Mason always stopped at the same liquor store before heading home. Caleb parked 2 blocks down, waited. When Mason walked out with a brown paper bag and a bottle of vodka, Caleb followed. Not close, not obvious, just enough. Mason lived in a small duplex on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. A single porch light, an old lawn chair, and a broken mailbox duct-taped shut. Caleb parked a street over, watched the porch light flicker off around 10:45 p.m., waited 15 more minutes, then stepped out. He wasn't wearing gloves. He didn't have a weapon. He wasn't even sure what he was doing, not really. All he knew was that his thoughts had gone quiet. Not numb, not blind, just still. The porch light buzzed faintly as he stepped closer. His knuckles grazed the door, knocking twice. No answer. He almost turned around, almost, but something made him knock again, firmer. This time, the door creaked open, unlocked. Inside, it smelled like old sweat, stale beer, and arrogance. The TV played on low volume a sports recap, crowd noise muffled by distance, and there on the couch, half slouched, bottle in hand, was Mason, shirt unbuttoned, eyes bleary. But when he looked up, his lips curled instantly. "Took you long enough," Mason slurred. Caleb blinked. "What?" "You here to beg," he chuckled, "or confess?" Caleb didn't speak, just stood there. Mason laughed and gestured lazily toward the chair across from him. "You want a drink? You look like shit." Caleb stepped inside, slow. The door clicked shut behind him. The sound echoed like a verdict. "You know," Mason went on, "I was wondering how long it'd take. You breaking into my house. That's not very officer-like. Monroe." Caleb stayed quiet. He wasn't here for a debate, but his chest had burned. Mason sat up straighter, waving the bottle like a trophy. "I didn't make you fuck a prisoner. You know," he said with a smirk. "You did that all by yourself." Something cracked inside Caleb, a hairline fracture. "I didn't leak anything," Mason continued. "I could've. You're lucky. Actually, I let you live your fantasy. Gave you time. You should be thanking me." "Thanking you," Caleb whispered, eyes narrowing. Mason raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, I didn't ruin your life. You did." Caleb's fists curled. He took a step forward. "You don't get to say that," he said, voice trembling. "Oh, please," Mason scoffed. "You think this is about love? You think your little inmate boyfriend gives a damn about you now? He's probably already fucking someone else." Caleb flinched. The image struck harder than it should have. And Mason saw it, smelled the weakness, pushed harder. You weren't special, Caleb, just desperate and pathetic. Hell, even your hand shook when you paid me. Remember that $42 in ones like some strung-out loser? Flash. Caleb remembered. The locker, the bills, the fear, the shame. You ruined me, Caleb whispered. No, Mason said coldly. You ruined yourself. I just kept the receipt. And that was it. The break. Caleb didn't remember crossing the room, didn't remember grabbing the empty vodka bottle off the floor, didn't remember the first strike. Only the sound. Thick, wet, final. Then silence. Mason's body slumped sideways, neck at an angle no human neck should bend. Blood seeped into the rug like ink on paper. Caleb stood over him, chest heaving, but no tears came, no panic, no victory, just stillness. He didn't clean, he didn't run, he just walked out, got in his car and drove. At 2:17 a.m., Caleb walked into the cold, hollow admin wing. His hands were shaking again, not from fear, but from clarity. He opened his locker, took out the USB, walked into the warden's office, and placed it on the desk. No note, no words. Then he sat on the floor and waited. The call came in at 3:02 a.m. Officer Mason Doyle found dead inside his home. Blunt force trauma to the head. No signs of forced entry. No signs of robbery. Nothing stolen. Just a dead man in his own living room. Blood soaking into the carpet. A shattered vodka bottle nearby. By 4:10 a.m., the local police had sealed off the scene. By 5:30 a.m., they were already making calls to Cold Hollow Correctional Facility. And at exactly 5:47 a.m., Warden Thomas Pike walked into his office and saw a black USB sitting in the middle of his desk. No note, no envelope, just the drive perfectly centered. He didn't touch it. He called it. Within minutes, the contents were copied, encrypted, and displayed on his screen. 10 seconds of footage. Caleb Monroe, Eli Turner, no audio, but clear enough. Pike didn't need context. He understood exactly what it meant. He also knew what the media would do with it. Caleb didn't resist when they came for him. He was still sitting on the floor outside the office, arms crossed over his knees, face pale. 2 officers escorted him to holding. He didn't ask for a lawyer, didn't ask for a phone call, didn't ask for anything, just kept repeating, quietly, "It's over." Back at Mason's house, detectives combed through every room. His laptop was locked, encrypted, but in a small, fireproof safe under his bed, they found what they needed, an external hard drive labeled simply insurance. Inside, dozens of files, photos, screenshots, clips, not just of Caleb and Eli, but surveillance footage Mason had collected over the years, guards napping on duty, fights between inmates ignored, improper searches, even one clip of a female officer sharing cigarettes with a prisoner. Mason had been building a library of leverage on everyone. But the crown jewel, a longer, clearer version of the Eli-Caleb video, not the handheld phone clip, but something more damning, a screen recording Mason had taken from a restricted system feed he somehow accessed. The hallway camera had been disabled that night, but Mason, either through backup credentials or a hidden stream, had found a way to capture what the prison thought was gone. It wasn't supposed to exist, but it did. Longer than 10 seconds, no audio, but unmistakable Caleb stepping in too close, Eli looking up at him like no inmate ever should. The body language, the soft tension, the hand resting too long on a knee, the implication screamed louder than sound ever could. And now it was evidence. The interrogation room was cold. Caleb sat alone, wrists cuffed, staring at the metal table. Detective Reuben Glass, lead on the case, took his seat across from him and opened a folder. Caleb Monroe, 34, employed at Cold Hollow for 9 years. Clean record, 2 commendations, no prior arrests, not even a parking ticket. Caleb said nothing. Glass tapped the folder. And now you're here because your coworker is dead, murdered, bludgeoned. Still, silence. Glass leaned in. We found the USB. We saw the video. Caleb's eyes closed. Glass softened. You left it there for a reason, didn't you? Caleb nodded, just once. Why? No answer. Was he blackmailing you? Caleb opened his eyes. You know the answer. Then help me understand it. Caleb's voice was dry. I made a mistake. He made sure it never went away. Glass scribbled something down. What kind of mistake? Caleb hesitated. Then I fell in love with someone I wasn't supposed to. Back at Cold Hollow, chaos unfolded. The warden called for a full internal audit. Every shift log was pulled. Every camera feed from the last 60 days was reanalyzed. Every inmate with connections to either Caleb or Mason was interviewed. Eli was pulled from Block D at 2:20 p.m. He didn't resist, didn't ask questions. He already knew. They brought him to isolation not for punishment, but for safety. Inmate gossip spread faster than fire. And by lunch, half the cell blocks were whispering about the gay guard and his little boyfriend. The guards didn't say much, but they didn't hide their looks either. In interrogation, Eli held his ground. I didn't know what Caleb was doing outside the prison. I didn't know anything about drugs. I didn't help him kill anyone. Detective Glass watched him carefully. You and Caleb were close. Yes. More than close. Eli didn't flinch. Yes. You had a romantic relationship. Eli nodded. Yes. Was it consensual? Yes. Did he ever ask you to keep secrets? No. Glass looked up. Would you lie to protect him? Eli's jaw tightened. No, but I won't betray him either. By day 3, the media had the story. Prison scandal explodes in Wyoming. Inmate staff affair leads to murder. Dead guard kept dirt on co-workers for years. The headlines were everywhere. News vans circled the facility. Families called the prison in panic. Former employees began speaking to reporters, some defending Caleb, others disgusted. The internet, as always, split down the middle. Some saw Caleb as a predator abusing his position, crossing lines, seducing a prisoner. Others saw him as a man cornered desperate, blackmailed, ruined by shame and silence. No one could agree, but everyone was watching. Caleb's official charges came on day 5: second-degree murder, tampering with prison surveillance, unlawful fraternization with an inmate, and smuggling contraband. He faced up to 35 years in prison. His public defender urged him to take a plea 18 years minimum, possibility of parole after 12. Caleb declined. I'm not fighting to save myself, he said. I'm fighting to tell the truth. Eli wasn't charged with anything. There was no proof he knew about the blackmail, no proof he helped with any smuggling, no fingerprints, no phone records, no ties to the murder. But they didn't let him return to Block D. They moved him to another facility, low security, 2 hours away. The official reason: safety concerns. Unofficially, they wanted to erase the story as fast as possible. Warden Pike never gave a press conference. He released a short statement. The actions of Officer Monroe do not reflect the values of Cold Hollow Correctional Facility. We are cooperating fully with the investigation and reviewing all protocols to ensure an incident like this never happens again. It didn't matter. The damage was done. Meanwhile, Caleb sat in county jail, awaiting trial. He received no visitors, no letters, no calls. Except one. On day 9, the guard slid a piece of paper under his cell door, a note, neatly folded, no return address. He opened it. Inside, in careful handwriting, "I forgive you. I miss you. You are not what they say. Stay alive. E." Caleb stared at the paper for a long time, then folded it back and cried for the first time since Mason died. The trial of Caleb Monroe began on a brisk morning in late March. National media flooded the steps of the courthouse. Protesters gathered on both sides, some holding signs demanding justice for the murdered guard, others waving flags that read, "Let love be love." It wasn't just a murder trial anymore. It was a trial about power, consent, morality, and what it meant to love someone society told you not to. Caleb arrived in shackles, head lowered, hair grown out. He looked thinner than before, paler. But when the cameras flashed, he didn't flinch. He didn't hide. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was suffocating. 2 seats sat empty in the front row, reserved for family members who never came. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Sandra Lively, painted Caleb as a manipulator, a man who abused his authority, who got caught, and killed to silence the one man who knew the truth. He was not a victim, Lively said in opening arguments. He was a predator, and when faced with consequences, he chose blood over accountability. She showed the jury the video. 10 seconds. Over and over. Each time, the courtroom sat in stunned silence. The defense, led by Public Defender Marcus Lane, argued a different narrative. "This case is not about perfection," he said. "It's about a man, a deeply broken man, who made a mistake, who was pushed to the edge, and who cracked under the weight of shame, fear, and relentless blackmail." He introduced Mason's hard drive, the collection of surveillance clips, the proof that Mason had been building blackmail dossiers for years on multiple coworkers. He brought up the anonymous complaints about Mason's behavior, all dismissed, never investigated. And finally, he pointed to the note. The USB. The fact that Caleb turned himself in. "A guilty man runs," Lane said, but Caleb stayed. He told the truth, even when it meant destroying himself. Witnesses took the stand. The prison warden, several guards, the IT officer who confirmed the USB's authenticity. Then came Eli Turner, now released from solitary, transported back under heavy watch. He walked into the courtroom in shackles, not because he was dangerous, but because policy demanded it. He looked directly at Caleb, and for the first time in weeks, Caleb smiled. It was faint, broken, but real. The prosecutor questioned Eli first. "You and Officer Monroe had a relationship, correct?" "Yes." "Was it romantic?" "Yes." "Did you know it was against prison policy?" "Yes." "Did you ever feel coerced?" "No." "Did Officer Monroe ever threaten you?" "No." "Did he ever discuss killing Mason Doyle?" Eli paused. "No." "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Did you assist him in any way?" "No." "Do you still have feelings for him?" A longer pause. Then Eli said quietly, "Yes." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The judge banged her gavel, order. When the defense had their turn, Lane walked slowly to the witness box. "Mr. Turner, you've served over 3 years of a 10-year sentence. You've had no major infractions. Is that correct?" "Yes." "You were assigned to low-risk labor, cleaning, maintenance, organizing records." "Yes." "During that time, did you interact with other officers?" "Yes." "Did any of them treat you like Caleb did?" Eli looked directly at Caleb. "No." How did he treat you? Eli's voice shook slightly. Like a person. The prosecution rested its case on day 8. Their evidence was strong, the video, the motive, the timing. But the defense had one more surprise. A letter written by Eli, addressed not to the court but to the judge directly. She allowed it to be read aloud by Caleb himself. He stood, hands shaking, and opened the folded pages. Dear Judge, I know what I'm supposed to say. I'm supposed to talk about how I was manipulated, how I was taken advantage of, how I didn't understand what I was doing. But that's not the truth. The truth is, I loved Caleb Monroe. And he loved me. He never touched me without permission. He never asked for anything I didn't want to give. He never promised to save me. He just saw me. I was a number in that place, a body in a bed, a criminal. He reminded me I was still human. I don't excuse what he did. I don't condone violence. But I also don't want the world to erase the part of him that was good, the part that loved me when no one else did. That love, no matter how broken, was real. Please remember that. Caleb's voice cracked on the last sentence. He folded the letter slowly. The room was silent. Even the prosecution didn't object. Deliberations took 2 days. The jury returned with a mixed verdict. Caleb was found guilty of manslaughter in the first degree, not murder, the result of extreme emotional disturbance and prolonged psychological abuse. He was also found guilty of violating ethical conduct as a correctional officer, but cleared of intentional smuggling due to lack of evidence tying him directly to contraband. Sentenced 12 years in state prison, eligibility for parole in 8. The courtroom buzzed with reactions. Some were outraged. Others relieved. But Caleb, he nodded. Accepted it. Like he'd been carrying the weight long before the sentence was handed down. As he was led away, Eli stood. Still shackled. Still watched. But unafraid. Their eyes met one last time. And, though no words were spoken, Caleb smiled again. And so did Eli. Prison was different when you used to wear the uniform. Caleb Monroe knew that the moment he stepped into Grafton State Prison to begin serving his sentence, the looks, the whispers, the subtle threats, the guards who used to be his brothers now eyed him like a traitor worse than a criminal. He wasn't just a convict. He was the guard who slept with an inmate, the killer, the disgrace. But Caleb didn't complain. He kept his head down, did the work, took the anger, the isolation, the shame, and folded it inward. He refused protective custody. He said he didn't want special treatment. And somehow he survived. In his 5th month, a letter arrived. No return address. But he knew the handwriting. Still here, still breathing. Hope you are too, E. He read it 10 times, memorized the curve of every letter, then folded it and tucked it under his pillow. It became a ritual. Every few months, another letter? Short, never more than a few lines. But always the same message beneath the words. I haven't forgotten you. Caleb earned a position in the prison's library after year 1. He read everything, law books, biographies, queer literature he never had the courage to touch before. He started writing journals, memories, thoughts. The past became less like a wound and more like a lesson. And, slowly, he healed. Meanwhile, Eli served the remainder of his time at Wainwright Minimum Security, a smaller, quieter facility 2 hours east of Cold Hollow. he kept to himself. Took vocational classes, learned woodworking, read. He stayed out of trouble. And 2 years after the trial, just a few months before his 32nd birthday, Eli Turner walked out of prison a free man. No family waited at the gate. No friends. Just sky. And silence. But he smiled anyway. Because for the first time in years, he could breathe. He didn't contact Caleb immediately. He didn't know if he should. Didn't know if Caleb wanted him to. So he waited. Found a job at a furniture repair shop. Rented a small room above a diner in a quiet town where no one asked questions. Each night, he read over the few letters Caleb had managed to send, filtered, redacted, but still real. Still his. Then, in Caleb's 8th year, just months before his parole hearing, something changed. He received a package. Inside a copy of Leaves of Grass, dog-eared and annotated. And on the inside cover, a note. There's a town in Oregon called Mariner's Reach. Small, cold in the mornings, good coffee. No one here knows your name. When you get out, I'll be waiting. No signature. He didn't need one. Caleb was granted parole 2 weeks later. 8 years served. He left Grafton with a small duffel bag, a few state-issued documents, and the book clutched to his chest. No press followed. No family greeted him. He took a bus west. 46 hours later, he stepped off at a dusty station in a town that barely existed on the map. The air smelled like pine and sea salt. He looked around. And there, leaning against an old pickup truck, was Eli. Older. Tanner. But those same eyes. Same quiet calm. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Then Caleb said softly, "You waited." Eli smiled. "You came." They didn't rush. They didn't move in together that night. They took walks, drank coffee, watched old movies. Shared silences that felt more like conversations than words ever could. Caleb worked part-time at the local library. Eli built custom shelves for the townspeople. They rented separate places at first, not out of fear, but out of respect, to rebuild slowly, deliberately. By the end of the first year, they shared a home. By the end of the second, they shared everything. No one in Mariner's Reach knew the full story. A few asked, and were told simple versions. Old friends. Long time apart. That was enough. Because here, they weren't ex-convicts. They weren't scandal. They were just 2 men. Living. Breathing. Loving. Sometimes, at night, Caleb would wake from dreams of cell doors slamming. Sometimes Eli would flinch at sudden shouts or the flicker of overhead lights. The past never left completely, but it stopped haunting them. Became a shadow, not a sentence. One afternoon, sitting on the porch as the sun dipped behind the trees, Caleb asked, "Do you ever think about it?" Eli glanced over. The trial. All of it. Eli was quiet for a moment. Then said, "Yeah, but not the way I used to." "Me neither." They sat in silence for a while. Then Caleb added, "I still don't know what we were back then." Eli smiled gently. Something real, even in a fake place. Caleb looked at him. Still is. Still is. They didn't need a wedding. Didn't need rings. Just a quiet vow spoken one morning over coffee. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Because love, when stripped of noise, of judgment, of fear, is simple. And, in the end, that's all they ever wanted. Not forgiveness. Not fame. Just freedom. To love. To exist. To be.